Okay, so hi, welcome back. Today we're going to be speaking about productivity hacks for handmade skincare businesses. First, you want to start off by planning your week from the Sunday or the Saturday, whichever day is better for you. You plan it on that. More than likely, a lot of people like to do Sunday. You go ahead and you'll plan your week. So you'd start by selecting the items that you want to make that day and how much of that item you want to make. So for example, you had for the week you wanted to create body butters, you wanted to create soaps, and you probably want to do some skincare toners. Or if you wanted to do body butters, maybe like 4 different scents, and each day you do 1 scent, right? That would be number one. Once you figured out, which items you plan to make that week, how much of those items you want to make. This can vary between 6 and maybe, depending on the size of your business, probably like 50, 100, depending on the size of your business. But for some of us, like micro businesses or growing businesses, that can look like 6 to 12 of each item, because you don't want to make too much of that item and then let's say you don't sell it fast enough, they go bad, because these are natural items using natural ingredients and they do have a shelf life, a shorter shelf life than products in store. So I'd say, depending on your size, it depends on your size, but if like you're really small like me, sometimes I'll do like a dozen or 24. That would be like minimum for certain products, certain items, especially if it's not a bestseller, right? So now you know how much, now you know which items you want to make for that week. Now you also know how much of that item you want to make. By this time, you should have an idea of how long it takes you to make these items. So what that looks like is, for each item, it might take you 2-3 hours. Depends on how long you've been making it, how good you are at it. And if you're a beginner, it might take you longer. Knowing how much time it takes you to make the product is very important, because it helps with your pricing if you use how long it takes. Now, not everyone can do this, because sometimes we take longer than others and it just, doesn't work out. But it helps in the long run to know how long it takes you to make the product. By figuring out how long it takes you to make a batch, then you can know how much time in a day you need to allocate towards making that product. So now that you know how much time you need to allocate in a day to make that product, you'd want to go on your Google Calendar or whichever calendar you use to schedule time out to make your products and block out that time. So you do, how Google Calendar, you do time blocks. You want to block out, let's say 3 hours out of your day for product making, right? So this way you don't forget, and this way you have a set schedule and you can have things done on time. In addition to that, if you don't know how long it takes you to make a product, then start making it out. Take a week or two to make products and record how long it takes you to make these products. So that way by the 30th week or by the end of the week, you'll have an idea of how long it takes you to make a certain amount of products each day. You also want to make sure that you add cleanup time to your daily schedule. So whatever time you block out to make each product or each batch, you want to add cleanup time to that, because that is a part of your production time. It is best to schedule your production time during a time where you have no interruptions. So this can be at night. If you have children, this can be when your children are at school. This can literally be when no one is home. I say this because it takes you much longer to make products when you're constantly interrupted. Also, I don't think it's very sanitary to, continuously be interrupted while you're making products, because you do have to change your gloves, you have to take them off, you have to stop. And with continuously being interrupted, you may forget stuff. For example, with body butters, if you put it in the freezer, forget that it's in the freezer, now it's hard, you have to melt it again. If you're melting products on the stove, you're interrupted, you walk away, you leave it on the stove, it might burn. Shea butter can burn. And you don't want to make these mistakes while you're making products. So it is best that you schedule your production time when there's no one home. It makes your life so much easier, and you'll thank me later. Also, for me, the nighttime when everyone is asleep, because a good thing is the kitchen is empty. So half of my kitchen is regular, half of it is for my business. Being able to work when no one comes in the kitchen, no one comes around, everybody's sleeping, have, you know, your music or whatever you need to relax and make your products. That if you're a night person, then that would be the best time. Had to switch locations, but we're back. Now, it is very important that you test your recipe before final production. So that means you create your formula, test your formula, then you produce it. Do not use production time to test your formula. This will only make production time longer, and it will also create a lot more waste, and you'll waste a lot of money doing that. Now, this should be common knowledge, but it's not, because some people do that. So just a heads up, test and create before, and then the next day you do production. And this production should happen after you actually run a test run to see how long your products will last as well. Depending on the type of product it is, there's some products in the market that has like an average shelf life, like body butters, oil-based things. It's not very hard to get the shelf life of those. If you're making serums that include water, anything that you're making with water, it is important that you actually let it sit out for a while to see its shelf life if you're not able to do your own test. There's kits that you could order online from, I think, Formulate, a sample shop that allows you to test how long, you know, your production will last, how long your product will last. If you're not able to do that, create, test, and see how long it stays in, you know, good condition without growing mold, etc. Those tests are important, because as much as we tell our customers that these are natural products and they need to be used within a certain amount of time, sometimes they keep them longer. So it is our job to tell them the shelf life of the product, or an estimate of the shelf life, so they know this, and they know that they need to use up this product. These products are not supposed to be sitting on their shelves. Now, with that said, let's move on to the next one. Create tests, and you know, right when you go into production, let's say the day before production, you scale the recipe. So it is important that we scale our products the night before, even the Sunday before you make the product during the week. Try to scale all your products, so you know, for example, if you want to make 24 8 ounces, or you want to make 12, you know, you need to scale a product before from 10, because sometimes the initial formula is small. When you're doing samples, probably like 5 ounce, 12 ounce. So when you do your sample, you create your formula that works. You want to scale that 12 ounce, that 4 ounce to, you know, 196. Scale it to whichever amount you need, as much as you need. So that way, on the day of production, you don't have to go through doing that. So that is very important as well. Another thing I would say is clean your tools and your equipment before production time. Prep, like production, making your production time shorter is equivalent to you prepping properly before. Do not use your production day or time to prep. Prepping should be done before production. Prepping should be done, sometimes depending on what it is, you should have certain things you could do days before production. If you have this in your head, it makes your life so much easier. Even if you're testing, you could do these preps before to make your production time shorter. So all this prepping goes hand in hand. Everything goes hand in hand. Now that you've scaled your product, you would want to check your formula, look at each ingredient, see the percentage of each ingredient, and see how much is it in ounces. Match these ounces to what you have in your inventory to make sure that you have enough ingredients for production day. Now, if you do not have enough ingredients, then you want to order these at least a week out with shipping time, so that way it does not delay your production time. Okay, this is very important, because sometimes we tell ourselves that we have a certain amount of ingredients, and then when the day and time comes for production, you check, and right in the middle of producing a product, you realize you're out of a certain ingredient, which makes your life harder, because now you have to stop what you have to do, or depending on the type of product that you have to substitute. Substitution is not always the best thing, because substitution equals a different texture, some substitution works for the product, but sometimes depending on the texture or what it is, your client can tell the difference when something is substituted. They can tell you how it feels different. So we don't want to have to do that constantly. Sometimes it is necessary, But if it is not, if it can be avoided, avoid it by prepping before. So now we're at almost the final tip. Like what you do before production, during production, and after production goes hand in hand to make your life a lot easier. So at the end of production, what you want to do is check how much of the ingredients you have left that you just used in that particular product. Let's say you made a body butter, you use shea butter. Check to see how much you have left. If you have a small amount left, chances are you're going to need more. So you can use that time, if finances allow it, to order more products instead of waiting, that we'll have products on the way. If you check and you see that you're completely out of certain things, you can go ahead and order. So the point of this is putting you ahead of the game for the next production day and the next production time. So that way you will not be delayed and you won't have to say to your customers, I can't make this because I don't have the ingredients. Check right after you're finished and make your life easier. Also, my final note is, if you created a product and you had to substitute, you had to, change up some stuff, it is important that you create a note. Write a note of it. You can use Notion to write if you want to use your phone, or if you're traditional like me sometimes, make sure you have a pen and paper beside you, a book. I have a recipe book, formulation book. Write down the changes that you made and the date that you made those changes. Because say suppose you made a change and that batch sold really quickly and you got really good reviews. That might be a permanent change, but you want to make sure you write down the date of when you made that change. So the products that were sold during that time and date relates to the time that you made the change, if that makes sense. All right, so I hope these tips help and good luck with your skincare business.